Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Leverage Report. I am Dan Miner, joined today by John Gomez of Gomez Trial Attorneys, who is here to discuss the Shades of Mass Legal Conference coming up September 19th through 21st. Thanks for being here today, John.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. I would love to start with just an overview of your firm. Could you maybe talk a little bit about, the law firm, some of the things you specialize in and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that. So we're primarily located in San Diego, California. We do cases really all over the country, but certainly all over California, with, I would say, an emphasis on personal injury cases. We also do employment cases. We do mass tort cases, some civil rights stuff, and some class actions. And I think one thing that makes us a little different is we're Latino-led, Latino-founded, try to provide very high level of legal services in native language and native culture to Latino clients.
Just dive into one other section with you, John, which is some of the service lines that you support. Now, I was looking at your website. It looks like your brain injury, traditional personal injury, you've done some criminal work, but can you just talk a little bit about that breadth? Because you have a great roster of attorneys, and I think it's pretty impressive what you've been able to build.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. And so I think really the commonality, the way we built it is as trial lawyers. And so I personally probably tried 15 brain injury cases. My people here are set up to try cases. We have a full mock courtroom. We have all the resources. So whether it's a case like that, we're getting very much more into employment law, sexual harassment, sexual assault, those kinds of things. We'll try those cases as well. I've tried 2 class action cases, 2 mass tort bellwether cases, very unusual to try those cases, civil rights cases. So, the breadth is really derived from our ability to try cases and to have really high levels of litigation service.
Very, very cool. What do you think are the biggest issues that your Latino clients face when they're seeking counsel?
I think hesitation and fear of the process can generalize. That's not going to be for all of them, but for the more recent arrivals or perhaps clients that have immigration-related issues, they're going to be a little hesitant, a little anxious about being involved in the process. And then after that, I think it's just communication. I think, there's a lot of lawyers out there that'll get one Spanish-speaking paralegal, and that's we try to go beyond that.
Very cool. A lot going on in the industry. Your firm is trying to solve several of these challenges or issues. Maybe talk a little bit about some of the pain points that you see in today's industry landscape.
I think there's obviously a number of them. Getting cases is always hard because there's a bunch of competition. And so how you best get cases, I think, is, I don't know if it's a pain point, but it's certainly something that's very important. The influx of outside capital and especially other markets other than California, present, I think in the future, some issues to deal with in an advantageous way, or at least, have that on your radar. Obviously, the development of artificial intelligence and the best use of that, and then remote staffing. And so, all that combined, the ultimate pain point is, trying to do good by your clients and try to make a living. And I guess the challenges just change over time.
Makes a lot of sense. We hear the same pain points. It's, how do I introduce new technologies? How do I get more efficient? Many law firms, will say that they're case rich, but cash poor. So they're seeking solutions to work up their cases. And then, of course, constantly trying to find new cases, especially with the capital that's come into the space. I want to shift gears just a little bit to the Shades of Mass conference. Can you talk a little bit about that event, why it's so important to you?
Yeah, sure. So, that's coming up, as I think we talked about, next month in Houston this year. And really the intent of that group is to increase the presence of minority lawyers in leadership positions in coordinated proceedings, MDLs, big cases. It's important to me because there remains a tremendous underrepresentation, both in the legal industry generally and certainly at the highest levels of these positions.
How have events like that helped change the way you think about your practice, how you network with other professionals in the space to ultimately evolve their own practices?
I think it's a different set of colleagues that share something perhaps from birth, but certainly, over the course of a lifetime. Like that world in particular, the mass tort world, has always been based on relationships, these little side meetings or these little coalitions. I think for a long time, certain groups were excluded maybe not intentionally, but just certainly we tend to hang out with people that are like us. This movement is intended to correct that, give us our own, groups or colleagues or coalitions. I think the judiciary is very receptive to that. They've done a lot of things based on gender over the last few years. And I think, now they're going to be doing more things based upon this movement.
A great lineup of speakers at this event. What can attendees expect? Some great topics. Maybe talk a little bit about some of the topics and what attendees can expect from some of these speakers.
Yeah, I think the conference is uniquely inspiring. There's a lot of sort of, keynote or larger presentations based upon social justice lawsuits and agendas and initiatives. And so last year in Miami, we were all really inspired by that. Otherwise, I think the real value of the conference is, like I said, relationships and mentoring. And I think a lot of it is really intended to kind of open the doors to these more complex litigations and say, look, you could do this, we can do this together. And so I would say for me, and I think probably for others, the most important thing is just building relationships and strengthening relationships.
If you were talking to a first-time attendee, talking about building those relationships, what advice do you have for them for this conference? What are the things that they should be looking to do with this event?
I would just, encourage them to just walk up to their heroes, the people who just spoke, introduce themselves, try to make those relationships, and then make sure they follow up after the conference, with those people as well. It's really primarily an opportunity to, like I said, make relationships or strengthen relationships. So go sit in your room, don't get drunk and sleep in and not meet anybody. Get out there and hustle.
Sure. Looking ahead, what do you see as the long-term goals of Shades of Mass? How do you envision the event growing over time? I think this is year 3, if I'm not mistaken. How do you envision it growing over time?
Personally, I'd like to see a lot more West Coast presence. Like in California today, probably 65% of our kids in public school are Latinos. And, that kind of dynamic preponderates across the Southwest. And so I would like to see more of that presence at the conference, more West Coast presence, and then forming those alliances and being really powerful as a whole.
Crazy stat there that you just said. 65% of the student population is Latino. I mean, that is a crazy stat.
Yeah, there's quite a modification. Public schools.
It just reinforces your theme, which is how do we connect with those who are the largest population in the public school world and unfortunately are likely the largest population to face injury or face a potential challenge down the road. Anything that you'd like to share on Shades of Mass, on what's coming the rest of the year, kind of final thoughts to leave listeners with?
Yeah, I will throw in a plug for my own podcast. It's called the Law-tino. And basically, we discuss the intersection of law and the Latino community. I'm going to be doing some recording out on Shades of Mass because people like Ben Crump, people like Fu have done a tremendous job of kind of melding kind of race, culture, and law. I'm trying to be a small part of that movement here. And so check out the Law-tino. Otherwise, I think I'm going to we did something here called Shades of Success earlier this year, kind of like a smaller, more local event, really intended to create those relationships here. I'm hopeful that can serve as a model. I'd really like to grow this thing with the help of our tremendous leadership on the board of Shades of Mass.
Law-tino sounds fantastic. And I will encourage our listeners to listen to your podcast as well. It sounds like a great podcast. On the personal front, I do Spanish Friday in my house where we speak Spanish only. It's something that a friend of mine encouraged, and it embodies a lot of what you just said, which is bringing outside perspectives and sharing those outside perspectives. And so we've embraced that in my house. I think that's what really resonates with me with Shades of Mass is you're trying to bring groups together to showcase a different perspective, to connect with the population that you're truly serving. Well, John, I appreciate you taking the time with me today. September 19th through 21st, Shades of Mass in Houston, Texas. Check out John's podcast, Law-tino. I'm looking forward to checking it out myself.
Awesome. Yeah, I hope a whole bunch of lawyers listen to this and come join us in Houston, especially if you live in Texas. No excuse.
Agreed. Thanks so much, John.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.